It was a warm August afternoon, leaning towards evening. The sun was no longer scorching fiercely but gently gilded the tops of the pine trees and cast long shadows onto the road that wound along the mighty Kama River. Grigory Ivanovich, a sturdily built man around 55 with a weathered face and attentive gray eyes, was riding slowly on his faithful Ural motorcycle with a sidecar. The air was thick with the rich aroma of pine needles, river freshness, and blooming herbs. He was returning from fishing. The catch was good. A couple of hefty bream weighed down the net in the sidecar nicely. Grigory Ivanovich loved these trips. The quiet, the nature, the steady rumble of the motorcycle soothed his soul, offered a respite from the city bustle and his factory job. The road here was quite deserted, only occasionally passed by trucks or nature lovers on motorcycles like himself. The forest came right up to the roadside, dark and mysterious. After rounding another bend where the river curved, revealing a sandy shoal, Grigory Ivanovich suddenly noticed the figure of a man on the roadside. This was strange. The place was remote, about 10 kilometers to the nearest village. The man stood motionless, looking towards the river, but as soon as the motorcycle drew level with him, he sharply turned and raised his hand in a welcoming gesture. The gesture was somewhat formal, almost mechanical. Grigory Ivanovich, responsive by nature but also cautious, slowed down and stopped his Ural a short distance away. Something about the situation alerted him. He took off his helmet, smoothed his graying hair, and looked closely at the stranger before getting off the motorcycle. And then his gaze fell upon something located about 20 meters from the road, in a small clearing among the trees. It was an object unlike anything he had ever seen before. Perfectly smooth, without a single seam or rivet, a silvery gray disc, about 10 meters in diameter. It wasn't lying on the ground, but seemed to hover a few tens of centimeters above the grass, which wasn't even crushed beneath it. Sunlight refracted strangely on its surface, creating a faint rainbow haze. His first thought was, secret military tests? But it looked too alien. Grigory Ivanovich's heart involuntarily beat faster. He shifted his gaze back to the man. He was of average height, with a slender build. He was dressed strangely, but not conspicuously. Dark, either trousers or a jumpsuit made of a smooth, slightly shimmering material, and tall boots of a grayish metallic color with unusually thick, ribbed soles. His head was uncovered, his hair cut very short, almost shaved, light, almost whitish. His face was calm, even impassive, with fine features and unusually light, transparent blue eyes that looked directly at Grigory Ivanovich without a hint of curiosity or hostility. It was difficult to determine his age. He could have been 30 or 50. In his left hand, the stranger held a flexible, translucent hose, one end of which disappeared somewhere under the edge of the disc-shaped object, while the other was lowered into the water of the Kama near the bank. Some luminous greenish substance pulsed slowly through the hose. It seemed he was indeed pumping water from the river. A mixed feeling of curiosity and inexplicable anxiety overcame his caution. Grigory Ivanovich slowly approached. "Good day," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Do you need any help?" The stranger tilted his head slightly. "Good day, Grigory Ivanovich," he replied. His voice was even, emotionless, but he spoke in the purest Russian, without the slightest accent. This was even stranger. How did he know his name? Maybe he read it on the motorcycle or somewhere else. But Grigory Ivanovich didn't remember his name being written anywhere. "My name is, let's say, Observer," the stranger continued, not giving Grigory Ivanovich time to recover. "No help is required. A simple procedure for sample collection and replenishing the stabilizer." He nodded towards the hose. Grigory Ivanovich was taken aback by such directness and strange terms. "Stabilizer? And what is this device?" He nodded towards the disc. Fear receded slightly, replaced by burning curiosity. "It's a transport vehicle," the observer replied simply. "It allows movement between points in space and not just space." Like an airplane?" Grigory Ivanovich suggested. The observer smiled faintly at the corners of his lips. "Not exactly. The principle is different. We don't overcome environmental resistance. We fold distance, using resonant fields." He spoke of it matter-of-factly, as if explaining how an internal combustion engine worked. A conversation began, one that Grigory Ivanovich would replay in his mind thousands of times later. The observer seemed willing to talk. He answered Grigory Ivanovich's questions about the disk, albeit vaguely, using terms like gravitational harmonics and field matrix. He confirmed that the water from the comma was used as a component, not fuel, but an important element for maintaining the balance of some internal ship field, and that they valued the purity of Earth's rivers. Then the conversation shifted to space. Grigory Ivanovich, like many of his contemporaries, was fascinated by space exploration, read magazines, and was proud of Gagarin. He asked the observer where he came from. The man gestured towards the clear evening sky. From there, very far away. Your constellation, Lyra, is just the near periphery for us. He named several stars and constellations familiar to Grigory Ivanovich, and then mentioned others. The names sounded like music, strange and captivating, and he said they were just beacons on star paths. He spoke of many inhabited worlds, of civilizations at different levels of development, that the universe was full of life, but contacts were rare and carried out according to strict rules. We have been observing Earth for a long time, the observer said. Your civilization is interesting for its rapid but chaotic development. You stand on the verge of great discoveries, but also great dangers. Grigory Ivanovich listened, holding his breath. It all sounded like a fantasy novel, but the man before him was absolutely real, as was the strange ship hovering quietly over the clearing. He felt no threat, rather, immense, almost childlike amazement. Finally, the observer looked at the hose. The pulsation in it had stopped. He easily pulled the end of the hose out of the water, and it retracted with a soft hiss under the ship's belly. It's time for me to go, he said just as calmly. Thank you for the conversation, Grigory Ivanovich. Your curiosity and lack of aggression are rare qualities. He walked towards the ship. Please, stay here. Field activation might cause interference with your equipment and organism. Just observe. Grigory Ivanovich stepped back a few paces towards his motorcycle, his eyes fixed on what was happening. He now noticed something he hadn't seen before. The ship wasn't just silvery gray, but had a very pale, almost imperceptible green tint, as if the light came from within the metal. And on top of the disc was a low, perfectly spherical dome made of a material resembling smoked glass. It was semi-transparent, but it was impossible to make out anything inside. As the observer approached the edge of the disc, an opening silently appeared directly in front of him in the dome. Not a door, but a segment of the dome smoothly slid inward. The observer stepped easily inside, turned back for a moment, and Grigory Ivanovich thought he saw that faint smile again. Then the opening closed just as silently, the dome becoming solid once more. For a second, nothing happened. Then a low, rising hum was heard, like the sound of many spinning tops. The outer edge of the disc, about a meter wide, suddenly began to rotate counterclockwise. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, until its outlines blurred and then became completely invisible, turning into a shimmering haze. The air around the ship vibrated, the grass beneath it swayed, although there was no wind. The greenish glow intensified. Then the ship smoothly, without a jolt, rose vertically upwards. It didn't fly like a plane or helicopter, it simply soared, gaining speed with incredible acceleration. In a few seconds, it turned into a bright green dot high in the sky, and then that instantly contracted and vanished, as if it had been switched off. No sound, no smoke trail, nothing. Grigory Ivanovich stood by his motorcycle, stunned by the silence, which seemed unnatural after the low hum. He looked at the empty sky, then at the clearing where the incredible craft had just been hovering. Nothing remained. No flattened grass, no footprints in the sand by the river where the observer had stood. Only a faint, strange smell of ozone and heated metal lingered in the air. He walked over to the spot where the disc had hovered. The grass was completely untouched. He touched it. It was cool from the evening dew. He looked at the river. The water flowed calmly, as always. Had he dreamt it? But the net with the bream in the sidecar was real, and the motorcycle stood nearby. He ran a hand over his face. The conversation was real. The observer was real. The ship, it had taken off before his very eyes. Grigory Ivanovich slowly put on his helmet. His hands trembled slightly. He started the motorcycle. The engine rumbled familiarly. There was no interference. He drove home. But but he no longer noticed the beauty of the sunset or the sense of the forest.